Aloha and good morning. Today, I just wanted to expand on a conversation I had with a friend of mine the other day. I just told him about flat Earth within this last week and a half, and he had been pondering on it for a while, and we got into this like groove of conversation to where I was just kind of going off on my perspectives of stuff and starting to get into the metaphysical side of how I see, that I haven't shared yet, or completely shared, my personal thoughts on it. Because basically, he was just like, all right, well, I see that it's not flat or it's not round. So, what is it? And then what are the planets? What are the stars? What are the moon? And then I had to go into lights and, your atomic nature of light and the stars in your planets and your natal chart, and how all I know is that they're images. Like those planets and those stars are connected to our ancestors, and with who the Egyptians and Mayans and a lot of other people referred to as the gods. So many people understand the nature of the stars as being ancestors. So I was coming from that perspective, and coming from the perspective of light and being alive or in a physical state, and the death transition, just like the birth transition, and then really going into, okay, but he was really focusing on, but what is, when I look up and see like Mars or Saturn or whatever it is, and well, what do you see? And for me, what I see is definitely an image of light, and I know that energetic expression is connected to my body, like all my bodies. So all of the planets, how I was explaining to him, which is kind of how I interpret it myself internally. So this is just how I'm seeing things. But being representations of yourself. So Venus has archetypes, characteristics. Mars has archetypes and characteristics. Saturn has characteristics and archetypes. Uranus, Jupiter, Mercury, all the planets have our light, solid state light source archetype characteristics, and we read these examples or archetypes within our bodies. Like we fluctuate within time during certain times of the year or during certain alignments. Our bodies, our experience, our interactions, our emotions fluctuate, just like the moon affects us in certain ways. That's a light source. The sun is a light source. If you don't have enough sunlight, then you're going to be going into a depressive state, because you're not getting your direct light source, your life force energy to bring you up. So you're kind of just really in a dark time, or for an artistic perspective, you're just in a dark time or whatever. But so I was just pretty much explaining. He was like, so what's out there, and then how I see the dome, and because I was explaining, all right, the Earth plane is a plane of existence instead of a planet, which we've been told in order to maintain or create an idea, so they can add other artificial ideas onto to make themselves look superior in a sense. based upon artificiality. The ancient cosmos of like the Mayans and the Egyptians, I wanted to come from those perspectives because they existed in like the golden times, the golden age time. So what were they talking about as far as our relationship to the stars? And I hadn't completely gone into it to the depths myself, and with a flat Earth eyeball. I had just really had been kind of really sharing my perspectives on like my intuitive kind of feeling of things, and then I would go back and be like, whoa, this is exactly like what I was feeling or picturing in my head. So I guess I'll share a dream. Like I had a dream. The only dream I've referenced a dream that I had in another one of my videos where I didn't see the flat Earth, but this was my most like lucid state to where I was in a flying dream, and I flew. I was in a dream, so I was standing just like in a regular dream, and then I became really lucid, and I knew that I could fly. So I didn't really want to fly anywhere laterally. I was like, well, let me just see. I was so lucid, and I was just so pumped up. I said, let me see how far up I can go. So I remember flying, and I didn't have to do my like little doggy paddle that I usually do to keep my like center being going like you do when you're swimming. I And then after a while it just kind of like turns into regular like float flying, and then you can just fly with your mind. At least that's how I do it. When I lose it, I gotta catch myself with like paddling like I'm swimming, like first swimming. Anyway, I didn't have to do any of that. I just thought about flying, and I flew, and then I was just like raised up off the ground and went up in the sky. And I remember going through like layers. So the first layer was just like seeing the distance between me and the earth plane. Then I went up into the clouds. Then I went up into like it was like lighter layers of blue, and then darker layers of blue, dark layers of blue. And then I had my hand above my head, and I started to see like blackness out outside of the blue, and I kind of slowed down my flight speed and kind of paused there for a second. And I wanted to look down, but I kept looking up, like I want to go through that. Like, what is that? And I put my hand up through the darkness, from the blue into the darkness, and excuse me, it got a little cold there, and I experienced a little fear. But mind you, I'm still like lucid, really lucid as it can be. So every kind of emotion or everything is very obvious to me. So as soon as I put my hand through there, I got cold, and I was like, wait a second, I'm like still dreaming. Like, what am I scared of? And then as soon as that thought came through, the rest of my body flew through that blue to dark space, and I kind of blipped out of that dream and woke up into another dream where it was in this like cloud city. It was just like which was similar to a DMT experience I had a couple years ago. And I was just in this, just imagine if all the clouds were on the earth plane, and then there was like the constant lighting was sunset light. It was just like a sunset lighting everywhere through the clouds, like those really nice sunsets and really nice cumulus clouds. So it was like walls and land of clouds and that whole thing. And then I just remember being very very quiet and very peaceful. And once I was like very quiet and peaceful, then I started to realize, shit, I'm up here by myself. Like I'm 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 the only one up here right now. This is cool and it's sweet and it's like this is really peaceful and beautiful. Um, but like I wanted to be around some people. So as soon as I had that thought, I started to like um, come out of the clouds and then kind of like go back into where I was, and then I woke up. And so I remember that dream. But that's like the most intense flying dream I've had in a while because I was like super, super lucid. Um, so I was understanding like the dome as like dimensions and the stars as like dimensions or doorways. So when you are born from your mother, you come from the darkness, from the fabric of her universe into the vagina opens and you come into this plane. So just like if in a death, like a star would open, your star would open in the fabric, which is we see as the sky, and then you go into your next plane or your next dimension or whatever it is. And I explained to my friend that how I see this is that you can also go through planets. So like when you come here, you can come through planets. When you leave, you can go through planets. And the same thing with stars. It's like the same thing. So you come through an experience. Some people have like a Mars experience here. Some people have like a Mars, Saturn, Venus experiences. Like all different kinds of choices that you make to make up like your experience. So when you come in as life, you can come through as you can come through straight through the sun and like have like your sun experience, and when you leave, you can pop through the sun. And then some people, I don't know. This is just like my feeling of how I was explaining it to him, because this is how I understand it for myself, and it was just really kind of like seeing this flat Earth plane not so much as a physical, because he kept asking like, what's what else? Where can I get this information? What's next? And then I'm giving resources, but at the same time, I have to like explain metaphysics, like in some kind of definition or something like that. So I was kind of trying to explain all kinds of different layers at once, but that's pretty much what I came down to, was to feel out what the difference is between like the physicality and your metaphysicality, and how that relates to what this human experience is and what it's about. So like light and dark and fabric of the universe, and the lightness, and this is a depiction of Nut and the Egyptian cosmos and the stars. And I was gonna do a video on this image and then do my normal thing, but I was guided just to like share that dream and share this perspective, and then also go to this website after I do that to give like what my morning was about before I even was gonna get ready to do the video. I was only looking for this image, excuse me, and then I was gonna go, do my regular thing, but I went on this website. Someone told me to go on this website and then start looking at the cosmos, and I did, and it's really cool. So this is EgyptianMythology.org, and this is the ancient Egyptian cosmology part of it. So I'll just kind of breeze through, and then you can like pause it or whatever to read the whole thing. But I'll read some parts. But the first thing right off the bat, the ground was a more or less flat disk. Okay, so first of all, what did the ancient Egyptians perceive to be constituent parts of the cosmos, and how were they organized? The ground was a more or less flat disk that floated upon Nun, the primordial ocean from which creation had begun in time immemorial, and out of which the Nile continued to flow. The sky was a solid dome-shaped thing, and was often said to be the belly of a goddess, typically Nut or Hathor, whose body arched over the earth, with her feet on one horizon and her hands on the other. Her midsection was held aloft by the air god Shu. The stars glimmered on this goddess's belly. So, that picture that I was showing was that. And I was gonna explain what I just explained, like the dream, and how I was explaining that to my friend about the stars and the planets, and going through, and then outside of the dome, and this being a flat earth plane, and then you got the earth experience, and then the underworld, and then the whole transition of it all. And yeah, so I was gonna explain all that in the video, and then I went on the Egyptian cosmology, and it was like, oh well, this was it already. And so I figured I'd just read this to finish it out. So beneath the surface of the earth, within the waters of Nun, just above them, was the underworld, Duat. Duat was where the sun, and accordingly the sun god, who was by turns imagined to be Ra, Atum, Kefra, and or Amun, went when he sank below the horizon in the evening. During the night, he traveled through the underworld in his boat before emerging with the dawn to continue his journey across the heavens. The underworld was ruled by Osiris. When humans went to the underworld after death, part of them would typically make the sun god's circular journey with him, and part of them would linger in the underworld with Osiris. During the night, the two parts would be united. The land of Egypt was thought to lie at the center of the cosmos, both from a horizontal standpoint and from a vertical one. Each temple was held to occupy the precise center of the cosmos, the axis mundi, by those who worshipped there. Ma'at, the ancient Egyptian word Ma'at, has been variously translated as order, truth, justice, and virtue. Ma'at was all things and more. All these things and more. It referred to the sacred order and balance of the cosmos. Ma'at was present in the regular, recurring themes of the world, the seasonal rise and fall of the Nile, the daily. So the rise and fall in the Nile, how I was seeing that, and how I was explaining that to my friend, as the rise and fall of the oceans, like the tides themselves, the rising and falling of the waters, and then some people trace this back to the like the flood and all that, and all the other stories that are out there. Anyway, it was thus a concept that described the nature of reality, as well as an ethical concept that guided behavior. Ma'at and the cosmos were held together by the actions of the gods and of people, both bound to this timeless standard of rightness. Cosmotheism. Each of the Egyptian gods and goddesses were associated with particular forces within what we would call nature, or the sun, the Nile, the air, the soil, etc., which manifested some part of that deity. Not everything in nature was considered to be divine, only those forces that upheld and sustained the regular cosmic rhythms. So this goes with like some of the people who are going to be getting it, and then some of the people who aren't, and some of the energies or experiences are going to get it or not, and it's their choice. Nothing could be assumed to take place mechanically without the intervention of some active force, because The most basic elements of the world consisted of active forces. Thus, something that modern people would consider as mundane and predictable as a sunrise was the cause for ecstatic celebration among the ancient Egyptians. The gods were to leave the world entirely, its underlying structures would be thrown into chaos, and everything that depended on those structures would perish. You can read that. There was something else I wanted to read. Time, yeah. Today we tend to think of the universe as something that exists primarily in space and only secondarily in time. For the ancient Egyptians, however, it was the other way around. Osman's remark above about the cosmos consisting of a drama of the acts of the multiplicity of deities that lay at its heart have already hinted at this view. To round out the picture, let's consider the ancient Egyptian view of time in relation to cosmology. The ancient Egyptians distinguished between two types of time, one as Neheh, a cyclical kind of time linked to linked to the daily round of the sun god and characterized by the inexhaustible abundance of existence reflected in the sun's rebirth and renewal. The other was Jet, which was characterized by the continuation of that which had already been completed, as in the pyramid built centuries ago and still stood for all the world to see, or the way mummification preserved a corpse, for example, and was linked to the endless repose of Osiris, the god of the dead, who was also called Winnefer, he who remains matured, or he who lasts in perfection. Ne'eh was characterized by growth and change. When something had reached the culmination of its growth in Ne'eh, it was thought to be able to endure forever in that form of Jet. All that was alive existed in Ne'eh, and all that was dead existed in Jet. At night, when the sun god entered the realm of the dead, he and Osiris were united. Ne'eh and Jet were also united for this brief period before going their separate ways at dawn. Osiris remained below the earth and Ra to rise into the sky once more. Together, Ne'eh and Jet, life and death, the sky and earth accounted for and contained the cosmos, everything within it. So this is creation. Creation narratives or cosmogonies relate how the cosmos originally came into existence. There was never one single dominant creation narrative for all ancient Egypt. Rather, different places, times, periods, and groups of people had their own creation narratives that differed on numerous points. However, some common elements can be found in most ancient Egyptian creation narratives. Originally, nothing existed save for the waters of chaos. Out of this churning ocean of formlessness, the first form arose. This was a pyramid-shaped hillock called a benben at the top of the pyramid, or a tatanen, of deposited silt, a kind of hillock one might find along the Nile after a great flood. Out of the hillock, the first god emerged. He was referred to as he, for the sake of convenience, but he contained both the male and female principles within himself. This enabled him to create new forms all by himself, without the help of any other deity. By spitting or masturbating, he created a pair of new gods. At the same time, tangible elements to which they corresponded came into existence, animated by them. This new pair copulated and created another pair, who in turn created another pair, and so on, until the entirety of the cosmos had come into being. Chaos. No discussion of a cosmos would be complete without some consideration of that which the cosmos was defined against, namely chaos. For the ancient Egyptian, chaos was both hostile and fruitful and regenerative. It was nothing in the sense that it was no particular thing. It was utterly undifferentiated. It was a realm that transgressed the boundaries of the cosmic order in often terrifying and malevolent ways, exemplified by the snake Apophis, and to a lesser degree and in more ambivalent capacity the god Seth. and yet it contained everything in the cosmos and in potential state within itself. Chaos was a source of limitless creative potential, which was exemplified by the cosmos arising from its plenitude in the first place. The dead, including the sun god at the end of his daily journey, had to go back into the underworld and therefore, in an important sense, go back into chaos in order to be reborn. So these are those references. And the website, once again, is egyptianmythology.org. But these mythologies, these cosmic cosmologies relate, are very similar to the Mayan cosmology. And once I find that again, then I'll go ahead and share that. But I really wanted to share that perspective, and also share that dream, and kind of get the conversation going into what's next. What's next is also dependent on what was already. So a lot of people are talking about what is right now. Oh yeah, I see this and I see this and I don't see this, but a lot of these answers or understandings of what's next and all this stuff in a power state instead of a codependent, hopeless state of being somebody else or some other group of entities depicting your next steps. If we understand what steps have already been taken that relate directly to this earth plane and directly to our experience, not just today, but in the other times that this has been understood, then we'll see more clearly what those steps, what kind of steps we could be taking and moving just from what's already been done, and learn from them at the same time. So I just wanted to share that, and yeah, thank you for joining me. Until next time, peace, love, harmony.